Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. After a hiatus, I'm back with another episode of the Climbing Book Club, as I like to think of it. This time with one of the classics by Dave MacLeod, which is 9 out of 10 climbers make the same mistakes. It's probably my favorite book from the genre of training for climbing books. And even though it was published 15 years ago by now, I would say it's as relevant as ever, if not more so today. I've already made another video about Dave's most recent book, which is Moving the Needle, which I've linked in the description below. And I'm sure you already know Dave MacLeod, since he's such a high-level climber and also educator on this platform as well. So I'm not gonna introduce him again in this video. As always, I would definitely encourage you to pick up a copy of the book yourself, which you can do from Dave's website, which I'm also linking below. There is definitely much more useful information in there that you can read quite quickly. It's not a very big book. You can probably read it in a couple of days easily. And in this video, I'm only going to be covering the main takeaways I have taken from it, what I think are the core messages of the book. So let's dig in. I would say that the big overarching message of the book is that most climbers are stuck on some basic elements in their climbing, and yet they are lost in trying to optimize for different details that don't really matter much for their performance. It's the classic not seeing the forest for the trees kind of problem. Dave writes in the book that already in 2010, when the book was written, climbers were facing the problem of having too much information related to training, which was different from what previous generations were facing, which was having too little information on how to train properly. If anything, since then, media like Instagram, all the climbing YouTube channels like this one, and Reddit and so on have exacerbated this trend. There is now a deluge of information about any aspect of training that is enough to make your head spin, right? How many seconds should your hangboard repeaters be? Should you do block lifts from the floor like Yves Gravel, for example? Should you use a Tindeck, or should you not hangboard at all like Janja does?
What do you think is the biggest mistake people do? Is there like one thing that people...
Hangboarding.
Okay, wow.
Don't kill me, don't kill me.
Which commercial board should you get on? Should you get on the moon board, the kilter board, the tension board? And at what angle? Should you do 4x4s, boulder triples? Should you do arcing? With all these choices out there, it's easy to lose yourself in the details of trying to optimize the perfect training plan that is supposed to improve X aspect of your climbing without actually going through the hard and painful work of identifying what are actually the factors that are holding you back in your climbing. This reminds me quite a bit of the situation in my world of neuroscience research. There is a quote by chemist Frank Westheimer which says, "A month in the laboratory can often save you an hour in the library." As researchers, we often try to optimize experimental protocols for efficiency without actually taking the time to consider whether the questions that those experiments would answer are actually interesting in the first place. So the first main point of the book, in my opinion, would be that you should take some time to honestly reflect and identify the key weaknesses that are holding back your climbing. Of course, this is hard and uncomfortable work, and that's why we often avoid it altogether. Which brings me to the second main point of the book, in my opinion, which is that most climbers are held back by not pushing outside of their comfort zones systematically or often enough. Of course, comfort zones are kind of warm and cozy places to stay in, and that's why we do it. But they're also kind of tricky to identify from the inside once you're in them. It might look like spending most of the time at a wall angle that you're most comfortable with, either that is the slab or in the cave. It might be a certain movement style that you're comfortable with, whether that is moving very statically and controlled between different holds, or on the opposite spectrum being completely jumpy and dynamic. It might even be a bit more subtle by choosing a specific kind of discomfort, for example, the pain of hard physical training, when the actual problem lies elsewhere, for example, footwork, which requires a different type of discomfort, which is the discomfort of focused attention that you need to correct your imprecise foot movements, for example. It might also mean putting off trying really hard things in front of other strong climbers because you're afraid of the failure, the embarrassment, the comparison with them if you don't actually send your problem. It might mean shouting "take" instead of taking a lead fall when the bolt is below your waist or at your feet or something like that. Comfort zones can come in many shapes and forms, but what is true for all of them is that growth and improvement happens just past their boundaries. Importantly, I don't mean to say that you should completely blow past your fears and then end up in some kind of traumatic situations, because the only effect this will have is to push you back into your comfort zone from which you might not emerge for a longer period of time eventually. And speaking of traumatic events, this is a good place to segue into the next and final point, which is the fear of falling. According to Dave's own estimate, which is based on the people he has coached in the past, more than 50% of climbers are negatively impacted by a fear of falling. And I know that this definitely holds true for me. This is definitely stronger for me when leading compared to bouldering and when I'm outdoors compared to at an indoor wall. I was of course already aware that fear of falling is negatively affecting my technique on the rock, especially by making me overgrip the handholds and by also narrowing my field of vision so that I kind of can't see as many options for footholds, for example. But what surprised me was the sheer volume of fall practice that Dave kind of prescribes in the book. He says that we should count our falls in the hundreds before we can expect to see some kind of improvement in this aspect of our climbing. In the book, he writes, and I quote, that using myself as an example, 5 to 10 leader falls per session for a year was enough to break the irrational fear. Another couple of years of this was enough that the thought of falling no longer altered my technique in a negative way during my climbing. Okay, that is an enormous amount of falls.
I have been falling for 30 minutes!
To which I'm nowhere near at this point. And it makes sense that the volume is so high since we are trying to override an evolutionarily encoded survival instinct, right? But just to note here that Dave also writes in the book that fall practice should be done gradually, progressively, and with a good belay partner that knows how to give soft catches, and also with proper falling technique, because otherwise it might lead to traumatic events or injuries that would only have the effect to increase your fear of falling and potentially substantially delay your progress in this respect. I would recommend here the excellent series of videos on the channel Hard is Easy that are related to the fear of falling, but also the good belaying technique, and I will link to those below as well. Okay, so to recap, the 3 main takeaways I have from the book are: 1, to find out what's really holding back your climbing instead of trying to optimize for details that don't really matter. 2, to systematically push yourself out of your comfort zone in every way that matters for your climbing. And finally, 3, to stop avoiding working on your fear of climbing, because that doesn't really make it go away, but actually just lets it fester and grow over time. As always, thank you for watching. Let me know what are your own takeaways from the book, if there are some different ones that I missed here. And let me know whether there are any other books you would like me to cover on this channel. Once again, I recommend reading the book itself, which you can pick up from Dave's website. There is much more depth in there that I couldn't cover in this short video. And if you like this video, subscribe for more of its kind. Thanks. Bye.